So I Googled what are the red flags to look for when I'm buying a horse. And the first answer that it gave me, I printed out. It's about a page and a half, and it's about as useless as an answer could be. There was nothing in there to tell you what red flags to look for when you go to look at a horse. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This is Lucy. Of course, she's not for sale, but we're going to kind of use her as an example. So one of the first red flag, I'm not going to talk about when you're looking at a video or looking at an ad. I've already done several videos about that. I'm talking about when you actually physically go to look at the horse. What is a big red flag? Not necessarily means a hard no. To me, some of them are hard no, some of them are not. Some of them just things to consider. I kind of classify everything I see as a maybe, a yes, a maybe, or a hard no. And when I get to one of those hard no's, I walk away. So we're going to talk about when you go to look at a horse for the first time, always come at least 20 or 30 minutes early. You don't know what that owner, that person that's showing the horse, is doing with the horse before. If he's out riding it, might be bathing it, I don't know. But you want to come early. Whatever that owner is doing to prepare the horse, you want to come while that owner is doing it, or trainer, or whoever it is. What I want to see when I go to look for a horse, when I show up 20 to 30 minutes early, I want the horse to be in his stall or out in the pasture and to be dirty. That is what I want to see when I get there. I don't really care how dirty the horse is. Especially like right now it's raining, and I would expect the horse to be muddy. Now if I come to a place to look at a horse and the horse looks like it's been spit shine polished, it's not necessarily a hard no, but I'm definitely going to take that in consideration. You would expect someone to make the horse look good, but I don't want to show up and them have been working the horse. If the horse is in some cross ties like this, relax, this is okay. Not what I would prefer, but this is okay. What could have happened is the person could have got the horse out of the stall, put it in the cross ties, cleaned it up real good, and given it a sedative. That would make it look nice and calm in the cross ties. You never know. That's why I really want to when I come, I want the horse in the stall or out in the pasture. Out in the pasture is even better, because then we're going to walk out together and I'm going to see how easy that horse is to catch. All the way from the beginning. I want to know exactly what that horse is doing. Now once you get there early and you go catch the horse or first come up to the horse, watch the horse's expression. She's relaxed. Her ears are flicking around. Watch what they're doing with their feet, how they're standing. Pay close attention to her forefeet and how they're standing. I'm going to ask her to move a little bit. I'm just going to drop the cross ties, turn her around, and then put her back in the cross ties. I want to show you something. Let's see if she does it or not. Watch how she's putting her feet on the ground. Watch how she does a turn. And we'll put her back in the cross ties. Back up. So first off, let's talk about how she made that turn right there. This is Lucy. I mean, if you've seen any of my videos, that's what I wanted to point out right there. See her step forward with that left foot? When she was standing in the cross ties before, she had that left foot forward. Right then she stepped forward, she's sore on the left foot. That's what that means. That's what you need to look for. When I walked her out and turned her around, she told me she was sore on that left foot. You should be able to look at that video and figure out if she's sore on the inside of the left foot or the outside of the left foot. That's the kind of thing that you want to pay attention to. Now, a horse can be standing in the cross ties or wherever all kind of weird ways. Doesn't really matter. What matters is I brought her back. She was relatively still. That left foot stepped forward. That's a red flag. That's something you need to be aware of. So I got some video of her coming down the stall. I'll play it right now. I'll overlay it over the tape, and you'll see how she moved in that video. Her movement is typical for navicular. I don't need a set of x-rays to look at that movement and see that that movement is navicular. You need to, as a potential buyer, you should be aware of watching a horse move and having an idea of what's wrong with it. You don't need a vet check to say, hey, there's navicular. But what you do need to do is you need to be educated enough to know what to look out for. So, I mean, we don't hide the fact that she has navicular. She's 23 years old and a lesson horse. I've talked about it in the previous videos. So that's an indication that that foot is sore. When you're looking at the body coat overall, poor body coat doesn't necessarily indicate a serious problem, but what I'd like to look at is I want to look at the direction the hair's laying. And I got her out of stall, I hadn't brushed her or anything. Her hair is generally laying this direction. And it's pretty much all laying the same direction. When I see a horse's hair lay this way, and then all of a sudden the hair lays a different direction, that is a big red flag for me that there is something health-wise going on with the horse. If it's going, the hair's laying all different directions. In my experience, a large number of times, that means that horse has EPM when the hair lays different directions. Something else to look for, it's a red flag. Her coat is pretty slick. If you have a horse that's pretty slick and it just kind of has sporadic long hairs around its body, that's a sign that the horse has parasites. So that's something else that I'll look for, just sporadic long hairs. And a lot of times, unless you really look close, you don't even see them. So that sporadic long hairs is an indication of parasites. If a horse is standing with their back end up underneath them, she's standing pretty decent. Let me push her around a little bit. See, maybe you can get a better angle. There we go. If she was standing with her back end further underneath, then that is an indication of sore stifles. Something to look for. You can walk a horse around and then walk it back, and if they kind of camp out underneath again, usually means sore stifles. If the feet are out, and this, I'm talking about quarter horses, the feet are out, generally you're looking at sore hocks. So just kind of some things to take note of. I like to look at things like the ears while I'm walking around talking about the horse. I'm going to pay attention to what the ears are doing. The ears should be paying attention to what I'm doing. Now she's looking at the camera. She is aware of what's going on around her. Let me walk behind her. Oh, the left ear came back when I moved. Her ears are flicking around. A horse can be sedated and the ears flick around like this, but not normally. Normally, if a horse is sedated, the ears are going to be a little dull. But just because a horse's ears are dull, don't mean that it's sedated either. You have to take the totality of the whole picture. I've talked about that in a lot of my videos. You can't go by just one indication. You have to look at the totality of everything. Just because the horse's ears are dull doesn't mean that the horse is sedated. That's just something, hey, that's kind of cues me in. Let's see if there's any other indications that the horse is sedated. So that is a big help, a big red flag. If the ears are kind of like hers are, just kind of in a out position and not flicking around, that's a big red flag. Something's going on there. Sometimes when the horses are in, when the ears are in that kind of position, it's a sign of ulcers. And if I run my hand down the side, if they're sore right here, that ear is going to indicate, hey, I'm a little sore, be careful. The ear is going to tell me that they're stomach ulcers. Same thing on this side. I should get the same reaction on both sides of the horse with the ears. Camera's moving, so she's kind of paying attention to everything else. But I know that this horse doesn't have stomach ulcers. So that's something, an indication, a red flag. That when you go to look at a horse, if it might potentially have stomach ulcers. I don't have a problem with seeing scratches and scars. To me, that's a sign a horse has been a horse. But there's a couple of places that when I see scars, it kind of makes me worry a little bit. And one of the places is right here on the inside of the hock. That kind of tells me that horse at one time has had a leg in the fence and kind of skinned it. When you get scar tissue growing back here, that can impede how the horse moves. A lot of horses will get wind puffs right here. There'll be a little swollen spot on the sides. I don't really have much of a problem with that. They can throw little splints. As long as they're sound when I'm looking at them, I don't have a problem with splints or wind puffs. They can become a problem, but if they are old and they're not a problem when I look at the horse, they're probably not a problem. Another thing to look at, we're going to pick her front left foot up, and we're going to talk about what to look for when you pick up a foot. So when I pick up a horse's foot and look at the bottom, what I'm looking for, any sign of an abscess, a hole, any kind of really dark thing going on in here would indicate some thrush. But the big thing that I want to look at is I want to look at the shape of the bottom of the foot. If this foot is real flat, going across here, there's no little bowl, that's an indication of some foot issues. If right here at the point of the frog, if there's like a bump sticking out right there, if there's a hard spot, that's an indication of some laminitis issues. So you want the bottom of the hoof to have a little bit of a dish to it. You don't want to see any bulges anywhere, especially at the point of the frog. If I see a bulge at the point of the frog, that's a hard no. I would walk away from the horse on any of the 4 feet, but especially the front. That would be an issue of laminitis. She doesn't have that, but that's something that I would look for. She has pretty nice feet. She does have some navicular in this foot, which we're able to manage. Now let's talk a little bit about navicular. You can x-ray a horse for navicular, and the x-rays look really, really bad. And you can x-ray a different horse for the navicular and see it on the x-rays, but it looked like a pretty minor case. In my experience, how bad the x-rays look doesn't always correspond to how the horse acts and behaves. Lucy has pretty serious navicular when you look at on the x-rays. It's actually pretty minor and easy to maintain. It's not that big a deal. So I'm skeptical about x-ray showing navicular when determining whether to buy or not buy a horse. That might come into my decision as far as maintenance and whether that horse is going to suit what I want it to do. But depending on what I want it to do, what want for the horse, x-rays for navicular may not even be considered. So let's talk about mouth. One of the big things that I want to do when I'm looking at a horse, I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to rub right here. Not particularly hard, but I'm going to put a little bit of contact. What I'm looking for there, if there is a tooth on the inside that's pointing out into the side of the horse's mouth, and I rub, I'm pushing the side of that horse's face into that tooth. And if that horse has some teeth problems, it's going to tell me. That's going to hurt. So let's try the other side. Let's see what we get on the other side. She just had her teeth done not long ago. I wouldn't expect it to hurt, and it doesn't. So that is something I'm going to do on every horse. She must have had some food that I jarred loose. That is something that I'm going to do on every horse, because that's going to tell me if there are any teeth issues, any serious teeth issues. It doesn't mean there's not any, but a lot of times that will tell me if there's something in the mouth that I'm going to need to take care of. That's also going to tell me if that horse has had recent tooth maintenance. If I'm putting the pieces together and the owner says, yeah, the horse just had his teeth done 2 months ago, and I rub my hand down the side of the horse's mouth and that horse gives me a reaction, those two things don't add up. And that's a big part of what I look for, what the owner tells me matching what I'm seeing. If the owner tells me that the horse had his teeth done 2 months ago and I rub my hand down the outside of its face and I get a reaction, then that's gonna put some question into my mind as whether the owner is telling me the truth. That's a big red flag. If I find teeth issues and the owner tells me that the horse just had his teeth done, probably a hard no. I'd probably walk away. Another big thing to look for is if you see white spots up here on the withers. I've had a horse in here with some white spots. It's not necessarily a hard no, but that's going to tell me that horse could have a back that I'm going to have a hard time fitting the saddle to. At some point that horse was ridden with a saddle that didn't fit. Might have just been a poor made saddle. Might have been that the horse's back is a little odd and it's going to be hard to fit. So that's going to tell me some answers. You notice in all this process, I've put my hands all over this horse, and the horse was comfortable with that. If I put my hands on anywhere on this horse and that horse is not comfortable, that's a red flag. That's something that I need to take note of. Hey, that might be an issue. And that's really what I'm looking for here when I'm going to look at a horse potential to buy. I'm looking for potential issues. And if I rub my hands all over that horse and I get a reaction, let's say I rub my hand down here and that right ear pins, I've either got pain here or I have a disrespectful horse. Big red flag there. Anytime the horse pins an ear, it's either pain or it's disrespect. Either way, there's an issue there. Notice where her left foot is? I'm gonna give her some equiox today. So another thing that I want to do with all the horses that I would go to look at, rubbing my hands everywhere. I'm going to rub my hands under here where the girth would go. I want to feel for any lumps or any issues, any cysts under the skin, but I want to see what that ear does. I want to see what the ear tells me. That facial expression is going to tell you 90% of what you want to know. The feet are going to tell you the rest. So that's a big part of what I would look for when I go to look for a horse. I know a lot of people say always get a vet check. I'm not in that always category. Every horse, especially in the United States, a vet is going to come up with something wrong with every horse. That's their job, and that's kind of them covering their liability, covering themselves. They're gonna tell you something that's wrong with the horse, and don't ever expect a horse to come with a complete clear, nothing's wrong with it. If you get that, I question the source where it came from. If a horse has been a horse, something is going to show in a vet check. See her shift her weight again? That's what I'm talking about. She's not in a lot of pain. She's not reacting as I move around, but it's a little sore. That's the red flag I'm talking about. So if you feel like you need a vet check, get a vet check. But the other side of that is you should be good enough looking at the horse that you should know what that vet check would come back with. There are things, there are flexion tests the vet normally does when he does vet checks, and you should know, you should be able to look at this horse, any horse, and have an idea how that vet check would come back. So if, I know there's a lot of people that has been burned by buying a horse, getting it home. It wasn't the horse that they went and looked at. I've had a lot of horses brought here. That was exactly the situation. Put in the comments below. Tell me about your experience with buying a horse and getting it home and it not being the horse that you expected it to be. Was it drugged? Had it been rode to death before you got there and was tired and too tired to be bad? Behavior wasn't the same. Put in the comments below. Tell me about your experience with buying horses. So this is Lucy. I'll put a link to her playlist. I've done quite a few videos with her, some lessons and things like that. Until next time, thank you for watching.